On today's show, we interrupt this program about cap circumvention to talk about Kawhi Leonard's tenure as a Clipper and why it's been a complete disaster. A new article by Baxter Holmes of ESPN you might be able to describe as a hit piece, but does it have validity? Going to be talking about it and giving my take on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for 5 and 3 years right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every single time we post a video. And of course, you can follow wherever you get your podcasts. On today's episode, I'm going to be reacting to a September 17th article by Baxter Holmes of ESPN titled Inside the Tumultuous Kawhi Leonard Era in Los Angeles, essentially describing what the tenure for Kawhi has been. In my opinion, complete disaster. And this is coming from a guy who considered July 5th, 2019, the second best day of his life at one point. The first being my acceptance into UMass as a full-time transfer. I had that as my second best day ever at one point because I was so happy about Kawhi. So if you think you're a Kawhi hater, you're this and that, this all happened for a reason. I'm not a Kawhi. I don't like using the term hater, but I have hated his tenure, yes. So we're going to be talking about why it's been such a disaster, the stuff off the court that has contributed to the nightmare that has been Kawhi Leonard's tenure as a Clipper, and if there is a light at the end of the tunnel because his tenure is technically still not over. How can I paint the picture? The LA Clippers have been a franchise that is trash for the majority of their existence. I mean, we had the worst owner in sports. We were laughed at in movies. I always reference that because it shows how bad we were. In Love and Basketball, a great movie, by the way, there is a line that says, when a kid says, "My dad plays for the Clippers," the girl says, "The last time they were good, Dr. J was still a nurse." Clowned in movies. Joanna Mann, another one of my favorites. He's trying to go find an NBA team to play for. The agent says, "Even the Clippers won't take you." That's how bad it was. And when I started supporting this team, yes, the 05-06 season was good, but then I slowly started to see as a kid why we're the Clippers and why the team next door is who they are. We went 19-63 in 08-09, and we had sandwiched in between two 23-59 seasons in 09-10 and in 07-08. Lob City changed everything, truly changed everything, but they didn't actually change how far we'd go. Our furthest finish was Game 7 of the second round before Lob City, and after Lob City, it was the same. But they made it to the playoffs for the first time, or 3 years in a row for the first time. They showed what a winning culture could look like with the Clippers. That was a consistent 50-win team and consistently selling out. So they showed what we could be. Now, we get Kawhi Leonard after the 2018-19 team, is very inspirational to a lot of fans, very loved by a lot of fans, kind of embracing that underdog mentality that's associated with our franchise. But you know that you can't win a championship with an underdog mentality. You need star power in the NBA. And Kawhi Leonard was rumored to come to the Clippers and that he potentially wanted to come. When they won with Toronto, I thought maybe he feels like he's delivered on his promise and he's going to come. But we've never seen a player that won a championship as the best player on the team leave the following year. It's just never happened in NBA history. What makes me think he's going to choose the Clippers, a franchise riddled in bad luck and disappointment? But it would take a different kind of guy, and Kawhi was. And obviously, Kawhi, as I'm going to talk about in the next segment, held a couple things over our head that he needed before he signed. But ultimately, we signed him. We traded for Paul George, and he came, and it was one of the best days of my life. It was like so surreal to have these two guys, one of whom you thought was always going to be a Pacer, the other one you thought was always going to be a Spur, coming to the Clippers, coming to Southern California where they belong and where they're from. And the first year, I thought Kawhi was spectacular. I didn't love the load management stuff, but he did it in Toronto. It just was hard to win that way. Toronto had already established kind of this culture without Kawhi Leonard. However, they had DeRozan for that, but Siakam's ascendance was really big for them, and they ended up trading midway in the season for Marc Gasol. So they were probably better equipped than we were that first year to win without Kawhi, in addition to the fact that in the beginning of the season, Paul George wasn't healthy. He had come off those shoulders surgeries. So we were playing without both in the games that Kawhi load managed, and that was a little bit harder for us because it wasn't like we had SGA and what's his name? SGA and Gallinari like the previous year. So we obviously start to pick up steam towards the bubble, and then the bubble happens. And, there's nothing I can say except for Kawhi had his biggest playoff blemish of his career in that moment. And that's when it felt like, oh my God, like we got this guy here. Of course, when he's a Clipper, he falls short. But what I didn't like about Kawhi was his general demeanor in that second round series. This guy is not a guy that's going to be a franchise ambassador. He's not going to do any of the extra stuff. He's not going to pump up the fans thousands of miles away. He's not even going to shout out the fans. It's all business. And they asked him, what does it mean to potentially be one game away from the best season in franchise history? And he said, it's not a championship. It doesn't matter to me. And I get it coming from him. But I also believe that you play for a franchise, the fans, it means a lot to the fans. And if you're going to say something like that, well, you better get it done. Because we blew a 3-1 lead 5 years ago when you were on the Spurs. I know it's not associated with him, but you now wear the Clipper uniform. And not only did he lose, and we lose, he went out not even swinging. He went out sorry, looked like he didn't even care. That was a really bad start to the tenure. Then, of course, the second year. He bounces back, all NBA level season, insane first round series against the Mavericks. That's when, for me, I was very bitter after that first year. I was like, Paul George and Kawhi, like, why should I even like them? The way that they do, like, I'm going to support them, but why should I like them? That was a joke. You got us embarrassed. You blew a 3-1 lead again. And yes, it's again because our team, the Clippers, who's more important than any player individually, blew a 3-1 lead 5 years later or 5 years earlier. If you wear the uniform, you should have made sure we don't blow a 3-1 lead. And then Paul George making his comments about we're in the driver's seat after we just blew 2 double-digit leads in a row, that was ridiculous. And everybody knows what I had to say about that. But in 2021, Kawhi is going off. He plays insane in Game 6. He plays insanely well in Game 7. And we beat the Mavericks. And we get back to the second round. And he's looking like when I watched him in Game 6, I was like, this is it. This is what I prayed for. This is what I thought we were getting. These feelings where I'm like watching an assassin. I'm watching the best player the Clippers have ever had. It was incredible. I was at Game 7. I was at all the home games of that whole run. And then, of course, in Game 4, after 2 incredible performances by 2-1-3, Kawhi goes down. We don't know what his injury is. We hear it's like a calf injury or something. Calf strain or something like that, or knee strain. I forget if it was knee or calf. They didn't say he tore his ACL yet. And of course, we make the conference finals, and I have to give Kawhi credit. Without him, we would have never gone to the conference finals, even though it was Paul George and those guys that put us over the hump in that Game 5 and 6. Kawhi Leonard, we wouldn't have gotten there without him. So for that, I'll always be thankful for making that conference finals. Of course, we lost to the Suns, and then we found out that Kawhi was going to miss an entire year, which was very unfortunate. 2022-23, that's when I really started to get sour on this era because going into it, I got this job as a locked-on host, and I was saying we're going to win 60 games. I was like super optimistic. We won 42 games with Kawhi missing 82 and Paul George missing 51, and I was like, yeah, we're going to get this done. We're going to be great. And it was a year marred by mystery, injury, load management, player, and coach and GM beefing and all this stuff, and we ended up having a completely unserious year. Got Russell Westbrook in the middle of the season as a panic signing, and then lost to the Phoenix Suns after Kawhi Leonard tore his meniscus. And then last year, 2023-24, 2 seasons ago, we trade more assets for James Harden to support 2-1-3, which I was against because I was like, they haven't shown they can stay healthy. Why are we trading for someone? Like giving up more assets just to help them stay healthy when there's no guarantee that bringing in Harden is going to help them stay healthy. Kawhi has another incredible season, All-NBA, 68 games, doesn't load manage. You feel like everything's going right. And then boom, late in March, his knee flares up and he can't come back. He tries to give it a go in games 2 and 3 against Dallas, and he just doesn't look like himself. So another postseason comes to an end with Kawhi Leonard not being healthy. Then this past season, missed a ton of time the entire first half of the season, comes back, looks great the last month of the season. We go into the playoffs. He plays well, but not well enough, and we lose again. So all in all, the moral of the story is Kawhi Leonard's tenure has been a disaster. We got him to win a championship, not to go to the conference finals once. It's insane. We've lost in the first round 3 straight years. We haven't won a playoff series since 2021. And here's the thing, though. The moral of the story, however, is that Kawhi Leonard's tenure for the Clippers not being good has a lot to do with bad luck. But we knew he had injury problems, and we took a gamble, and that gamble just hasn't paid off. If it's just to make it further than we've ever been, then it did pay off. But obviously with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, we probably would have made it to the conference finals for sure. But, and for people that would say like Shai wouldn't have developed the same way, yeah, if we had Kawhi and Paul George probably, or Kawhi maybe, but if it was just Shai, then he would have. So the main stat you want to hear is that Kawhi Leonard's only played in 58% of his games as a Clipper. And that's the ultimate takeaway, is that Kawhi Leonard's tenure has been a disaster, in large part not even because of him, just bad luck. And that's the unfortunate part. But coming up, going to be talking about the mystery and the darkness and everything that comes with having Kawhi on your team, but also getting Kawhi, that makes me actually have a little bit of bitterness towards he and his camp. Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about 5-Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients, with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot, you can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I always reach for my favorite flavor, and that's usually raspberry, because it's refreshing, gives me a little sour taste, and it gives me that quick lift before a busy day. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. All right, so talking about Kawhi Leonard's tenure as a Clipper being a complete disaster, in large part it's because of the health, because of his injuries. I mean, only playing 58% of games, that's tough. And as I described, you had a torn meniscus in there, you had a torn ACL in there. In typical Clipper fashion, we get Kawhi Leonard, and he has some of his most injury-prone years of his career. It's just typical Clippers. But the darkness that comes with Kawhi Leonard's presence on the team, that is what really makes me a little bitter. And I'm just a diehard fan. Like, I'm a season ticket holder. I'm not there's a lot of, again, I always say this, there's a lot of locked on hosts that aren't even fans of the team they cover. I literally will go to my grave supporting this team. I remember the days of Richie Fromm and Marty Collins and Paul Davis and Coach Kim Hughes as an interim coach. Rest in peace. I was here when I thought Al Thornton was going to be a star. So Miss me with that fake fan bullshit that some of you guys are going to call me, say in the comments. Y'all are Kawhi stans. I'm never going to hear from you when he's gone, and I can't wait to not. But for the Clipper fans that, maybe take a little bit of offense, think I'm harsh on Kawhi, I want to describe why. So the first thing that I had a problem with, and by the way, this Baxter Holmes piece, you can describe it as a hit piece, damn near, but it's really a lot of truth in there. He talked about the 58% of games that he played and whatever. But the first thing was when Kawhi was using the Lakers and the Raptors as leverage to come here, essentially like a threat. Oh, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to the Lakers. I know now that that was a bluff. He was never going to go with the Lakers. He didn't want to play with Bron. He did not want to go there. It just, now that we know more about Kawhi, I don't think the spotlight of the Lakers is for him. I think he wanted to go somewhere where he would be a little bit more low key, but also be able to control more. And with the Clippers, he's always going to control more because we haven't had the Magics, Kareems, Shaqs, Kobe's of the world, LeBron James. But the Lakers, it's different. He's just another one of many stars that they've had. And he's also going to somewhere where he's not even the number one face. It's LeBron James. The initial request to get a second star upon arrival, I always had an issue with. Because we had a 48-win team. If you added one superstar to that team, we're a contender. Would we have won a championship? Probably not with Lou Williams as our second best player. But we would at least see how far we are, and then we can make some tweaks after the first year. We would have been damn good. Keeping SGA, Gallinari, who had really solid years for OKC the following year. You still got Bev. You still got those young players we had at the time. And Lou and Trez had another, they were first, second, and third with Dennis Schroeder in Sixth Man of the Year the following year. Why Kawhi had to come in after already winning a chip with I need a second star to compete right away or else, that put us in a hole that we're still in now and we're not going to be getting out of anytime soon. SGA turned into one of the greatest guards in NBA history. He's going to be one of the greatest. He's already won a championship as a number one option and averaged 30-plus points a game 3 consecutive years. So we had a superstar on our hands and we didn't even know it. We knew we had a good player, and the article states Ballmer was concerned by the number of draft picks the team was giving up. Then Clippers head coach Doc Rivers, then Clippers head coach Glenn Rivers later told reporters, there's only one Doc in basketball, in my opinion. And it's the one that I went to the same school as. The University of Massachusetts Amherst. The doctor. Anyway, head coach Glenn Rivers later told reporters in September 2019, and he wasn't the only one to feel that way. So yes, Glenn Rivers, Ballmer, they all had some apprehension to trading away picks, but you had to do it to get Kawhi. You're getting Kawhi Leonard in his prime, arguably the best player in the world to play for the LA Clippers. You have to do it. You have to do what he says. In my opinion, it's on Kawhi. And also, Paul George, this dude had 2 disappointing series in a row. Not as bad against Portland because he had shoulder problems or whatever. But if you watch the games, he did the same BS that he did with us. Watch game 2, second half, and see how Mo Harkless pickpockets him twice at half court, and he starts a run that they cannot get out of. Against Utah in 2018 when Donovan Mitchell was a rookie, I see some people saying, oh, Roberson was out. We would have won with Roberson. Bruh. You think you needed Andre Roberson, who was, I guess, yes, the primary point of attack guy, to beat Donovan Mitchell as a rookie? What about Mr. Two-Way in Paul George? He can't guard Donovan Mitchell? He was getting sunned by Joe Ingles. So you go to that guy to come in and we trade everything for to play with you? Ridiculous, in my opinion. It's just crazy player empowerment that's beyond player empowerment. It's like abusing your power and just like basically like holding a franchise by the balls, and like that to me, that's what it is. And I was always disappointed in that because anything that Paul George did for me is associated with Kawhi's request to bring him in. You didn't need a second star upon arrival, dude. If LeBron James, who's trying to beat the GOAT, the greatest player of all time, which I don't think he's ever going to be because he's just not as good at basketball as Michael Jordan, in my opinion, he is campaigning, though, to be the GOAT. And he didn't even ask for a second star the second he came. He at least waited and then asked for a trade, asked for Anthony Davis in the middle of the season. But, I disagree massively with Kawhi doing what he did. And of course, it's easier to say in hindsight. But if you look at my tweets, I was always not in favor of the Paul George part of the 2-1-3 side. I loved getting Kawhi. I was ecstatic about that. But anyway, and it doesn't end there. According to the article, it says acquiring George was one of several requests made by Leonard and his camp, led by Leonard's uncle, Dennis Robertson, Uncle Dennis, who outlined a series of asks for the Clippers in the days leading up to July 5th. Those requests included part ownership of the team, access to a private plane, a house, and guaranteed off court endorsement money, one source with direct knowledge of the talks said. They were the same requests that, according to The Athletic, Robertson made of the Lakers and the Raptors. The Toronto Star reported on September 9th, 2025, that Robertson also asked the Raptors for ownership stakes in outside companies and corporate sponsorship deals in which Leonard wouldn't have to do anything in return for the money. Robertson did not respond to requests for comment for either story. These verbal requests fell outside the boundaries of the league's CBA, and while the Clippers didn't say yes to them, they did say yes to others, according to a source with knowledge of the talks. Robertson, who did not respond to a request for comment for this story, wanted Kawhi to be able to initially live in San Diego rather than Los Angeles, which he did, by the way, and then he ended up moving and getting that penthouse in downtown. The Clippers agreed. He wanted Leonard to be able to skip some media obligations and team community events. The Clippers agreed. He wanted the team to promise to market Leonard individually. The Clippers agreed. He wanted Leonard to be able to bring some of his own people into the organization. The Clippers agreed, although a team source disputes the existence of some of these requests and the tone of some others. So, and the last one, perhaps most importantly, Robertson said there would need to be a strict protocol about how to talk about Leonard publicly, and that was to say nothing unless absolutely necessary. Rival head coaches told ESPN that the last request is not unusual for stars, and the Clippers, seeking to establish themselves as a star-friendly organization, again agreed. So my overall takeaway there is there's a lot of stuff that Uncle Dennis allegedly asked for under the table. Now, I don't know if I'm going to believe everything that is said there, especially the fishy part of that was the no-show endorsements, that essentially, if that is true, then that proves that we are guilty completely. But you're asking for all these illegal things, bro. Like, it's like college, like back in the day where like Reggie Bush and all that. Like, it's absurd. We sold our souls for this guy. We've gotten a bunch of injuries and a bunch of mysterious injuries in terms of the way they reported before we find out what they are. And all it does is just, put fans on this. It makes fans nervous. You don't tell us the extent of the injuries. You bluffed in the 2021-22 season that he could come back all year. It was absurd. Absurd. And then in 2023, they listed him as knee soreness for like 2 weeks when he had clearly re-aggravated his knee. It's not been fun having him on the team because when he doesn't play, we don't even know the extent of his injuries half the time. It's like, is he coming back? Is he this? It's crazy and it's stressful. And it's been stressful covering it. But coming up, I'm going to talk about if there is light at the end of the tunnel with this experience. I got to tell you a little something about Monarch money. With Monarch money, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. And Monarch Money really helped me when I did not know about what I was paying for and stuff like that. It was a big refresher to see that I was paying for Apple TV and I was paying for the YMCA and I didn't even know. I just got hundreds of dollars refunded to me by the YMCA. So thank you, Monarch Money. Monarch is built for people with busy lives like myself. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's a 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, so talking about the Kawhi Leonard tenure. Yeah, so, the load management stuff, it's not ideal. It's hard to build winning streaks that way when you have, let's say, 5 wins in a row, and then, oh, Kawhi's going to sit out this game, and we know he's going to sit out, and then it's, winning streak broken. So that kind of annoyed me the first 2 years, but if you're going to get 2021 playoff Kawhi, it's okay. And then 2021 was the first time where they said, oh, like they downplayed the severity of his injury because I think they wanted to, like, two things. One, have him come back as like keeping the opposing team on their toes that he may or may not come back. And of course, to get Clipper fans to stay invested in the journey, because if you report that Kawhi Leonard's out, you know that we're not going to win a championship anymore. So that was the first time where they downplayed his injury in 2021. Then in 2021-22, they bluffed all year that he could potentially come back. Nonsense, because he was not even 100% after a whole summer in 2022. And then in 22-23, he played those first couple of games, was out for our first road trip in OKC, in which we lost 2 games, and they disclosed it as like rest or knee soreness, and he was out for like 10 straight games, and it made him look bad. It made him look bad because they reported it as knee soreness, when it's like he actually re-aggravated his knee. So then he spent more time out, and then he comes back, and then he gets an ankle injury that we saw. It's easier when we see everything. When we see the injury, it's easier. And then, when he missed the game against the Suns, game 3, when that came out of nowhere, he wasn't listed as a torn meniscus. And then we got eliminated, and they said it was a torn meniscus. And then in 2023-24, we didn't even know up until game 1 of the playoffs if he was going to play. Every single game that went by, those last 10 games or so of the 2023-24 season, we did not know what was going on. It's like, that's not fair to fans, in my opinion, but I know there's some people out there that are like, who cares about fans? Excuse me, we're the ones that pay the money that make the NBA successful. Fans around the world and first of all, the Clippers would be out of business if they had no fans going to games. So miss me with that BS. The fans deserve to know a little bit. But here's the thing, according to this article, the Clippers team, the medical staff, doesn't fully know about Kawhi anyway. It says he was very separate from the Clippers staff, one source with knowledge of the situation said. It caused extreme angst within the medical department, another former staffer said. It was like Clippers medical staff wasn't really allowed to touch Kawhi ever. Think about that for a second. The Clippers medical staff is not allowed to touch their star player. How does that make them feel? And you know what's funny about that? It kind of like makes sense of everything. Why did Tyronn Lue not have a heads up in 2023 against Memphis when Kawhi Leonard sat out the second half and then would play the next game? Would the Clippers medical staff put the Clippers at a disadvantage? No, he wouldn't. They wouldn't. We're on the same team. Would Kawhi's medical staff make a decision at halftime that Ty Lue wouldn't know about? I think so. And when I talked to Jason Powell at Summer League and we met, I asked him, how is it in today's day and age where you have load management and you have all this stuff that you didn't have before? And he said, that's not even the toughest part of my job. It's dealing with all the agents, all the people, which was a clear reference, in my opinion, to these people. And then everybody blamed Jason Powell. It was like, our medical staff sucks, like all this. He's the scapegoat for all this nonsense that Kawhi and his camp have brought. It's very unfortunate because Kawhi is so damn good at basketball. It's very unfortunate. But it has sucked. It has sucked having him on the team because the amazing moments we get when he's on the court are few and far between, and when we get them, we don't even get them in the playoffs. We got game 2 against the Nuggets. Whoop-de-frickin-do, we lost in the first round. He was as good as he was not the Kawhi Leonard of 2021. He was not, and he no longer is that guy, in my opinion. He's lost a step, which is normal after you have a torn ACL and a torn meniscus. The fact that he can still even average 25 in the playoffs like that is incredible. Like, how is he still doing this? And maybe that load management is part of why, and their precautionary measures with the knee is part of why. But has it been fun as a fan? If you had told me on July 5th, hey, dude, in 6 years, you're going to be talking about one conference finals appearance is the only thing you've done with this guy, I would have said, you are an idiot. There is no way that's possible. But here I am sitting here talking about all we've had is one conference finals appearance and a bunch of first-round exits and seasons that he has not finished. And again, that is not fully on him. But after 2023, I was done. I was just not convinced he could ever stay healthy, and I was proven right until I was proven wrong this past season. But here's the thing. You can't play 37 games as the best player on your team and your team wins the championship. It just doesn't happen. You have to be available. They have to build rhythm with you there. And so this upcoming season is hopefully that light at the end of the tunnel. But before I go to that light at the end of the tunnel, I'm going to talk about one other thing that I felt was very interesting about this article, and that was the Team USA debacle. So remember last summer when Kawhi tried to play for Team USA, and it wasn't until the end of June that Team USA had learned that Kawhi had undergone a procedure on that knee 2 months earlier in early May, and that wouldn't become public for several months, right? But they found out, and they said that he looked slow and laboring. But of course, Ty Lue was on the USA coaching staff, and he emphasized that if Kawhi is playing, he knows that he can get his body back into shape. But what's very curious about that, and of course they sent him home because they didn't have any time to waste. They just wanted to go for the gold and brought Derek White in. Kawhi didn't end up playing till January. So 5 months. Like, how is he going to play at Team USA? And then 5 months go by and doesn't play? It was like, it's just wild to me. I just don't know what to think half the time. And I genuinely do believe that he couldn't play. Like, I don't think he's just voluntarily sitting out like that. That's not the case, in my opinion. But it's been a nightmare. And now what's made it even worse is SGA and how well he's done. And how the Thunder have a potential dynasty in the works that we gave them. They used the pick that we gave them to get their second best player in Jalen Williams. And it's all because Kawhi wanted a second star. Even if SGA had been traded later, at least we would have gotten a year more of him to increase his value even more. So we wouldn't have to give up so much to get Paul George. Because they were like, Paul George, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Like, who's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? A guy that might be a star. After year 2, it was very clear he was probably going to be a star. So for me, I can't really forgive Kawhi for that. He came in greedy. It hasn't worked out. He got bit in the ass because Paul George wasn't who he thought he was. And now look, we have a very good team, and now we have a news scandal on on the horizon. We had the Randy Shelton thing. We had the, Glenn Rivers got fined for saying that Kawhi feels great in 2020 when he was load managing, even though he technically didn't feel great because if he has to load manage, that means his knee is somewhat, hurting. It's just so much drama. They obviously investigated in 2019 and didn't find anything at the time with Uncle Dennis's illegal requests. But Kawhi Leonard said one thing. I believe it was the 2023 season. He said, "It's going to be a dark tunnel, and then it's going to be filled with light and joy." And I've been asking, where is that light and joy? Was that light and joy at the end of last season? Because I thought that there would be more light than just a first-round exit when we got him, to be honest with you. Again, I'm not fully blaming Kawhi, but I kind of am. Because he came here with demands. And he picked the wrong star. He didn't need to do that. If you want a talented team, just go to the Lakers, bro. Just go to the Lakers. You can't have everything your way unless you can. And he did. And who's suffering now? Us fans. And I know what some people are going to say. Be grateful. You guys were dog shit before you got Kawhi Leonard. Your franchise has done nothing. Because we had a terrible owner. But with Ballmer, we're always going to be relevant. We're always going to be trying to win. And had Kawhi Leonard not showed up, you know who we'd have right now? A top 2 player in the NBA. So don't tell me that Kawhi is this savior that we got to the conference finals we would have never done anything without him. No, we were not in a terrible spot before we got Kawhi. So miss me with that. There's nothing. The only thing there is to be thankful for is that he chose. Well, honestly, I don't even know if I can be thankful that he chose the Clippers. Why wouldn't you choose the Clippers? You come home, you get to do whatever you want. You get to run this franchise to the ground and just get whatever you want. You want your point guard. They recycle every damn point guard in the league for you. And then, you get re-signed. Even though you get injured all the time, you can just have mysterious stuff about your injuries all the time. And the medical staff knows nothing about it. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous how much power we've given him. And if it is true that we circumvented the salary cap for him, it'll be the worst move of the Ballmer era to get him. It'll be because it's going to look horrible on Ballmer. Because I think, you had to take that risk to get Kawhi Leonard. You have to do whatever it took. But whatever it took doesn't necessarily mean illegal things. But if the alternative was for him to go to the Lakers, like, I don't know. Like, you cannot let him go to the Lakers. But now I know he wouldn't have. But you couldn't know that in the moment. So that's why I don't blame the Clippers. But we'll see about the cap circumvention thing. I'm not taking a side on that yet. I hope we're innocent, but it doesn't look like it. If that story from the Toronto Star is true, that Uncle Dennis asked for all these things, then we are probably screwed because we probably did it to ensure that he signed. And why would we ensure that he signed? Because we're desperate to win a championship. Because we've never gone past the second round, and because we didn't want him to go to the Lakers. And we want to be pro-player because Donald Sterling was anti-player. But we've gone so far in the other direction that we've let Kawhi Leonard run our franchise into the ground. However, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Yes. And that is this upcoming season. We still have a very good team spearheaded by Kawhi Leonard, who, when healthy, is still incredible at basketball, is one of my favorite players in the league to watch. And we have a chance to make some noise. Maybe win a series, maybe two if we're lucky. We have a very good team, and this investigation is going to go on and on. So we're starting training camp in a week. And by no means are the players going to be thinking about some investigation. They're going to be ready to go out there and win games, and I'm excited for that. So if there's any light at the end of the tunnel, it's that we might have our deepest team in the Kawhi era this season. I actually think we do. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for playoff content from this past season that I didn't release and it's coming out. And an exclusive giveaway I'm going to have soon as well. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get us to 8,000 subs before the season. And of course, Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.